So I'm going to talk to you a bit about crowdfunding and how to make a successful crowdfunding campaign. We've not got long, so I'm obviously not going to go into all the details, but if there are any more detailed questions that come up, then obviously write them in the Slido, and then we can talk about them afterwards. So first up, who am I? So I'm a crowdfunding consultant. I've had my crowdfunding consultancy now for 3 years. And in that time, we've done 62 crowdfunding campaigns to completion, although I've also got 3 live at the moment. And we've raised nearly £3 million for those organizations. Our success rate's 83%. So 83% of people that take our training or follow our guidance reach and surpass their crowdfunding targets, whereas the UK average is only 20%. So you've got a lot higher chance of actually doing well if you follow some of the guidelines and suggestions that we give you. So thank you very much for coming to the webinar. It's going to help you. My background is in fundraising and in marketing. So crowdfunding is really a combination of the two, and then just slightly pivoted towards a different angle, but overall it combines both of them. You've got my email address down there at the bottom and Twitter handle in case you've got any other questions and want to reach out. But let's get through it. So we're going to talk today about the different types of crowdfunding and what type of organizations they work best for. Going to go over the 6 steps to a successful campaign, and then also just have a quick look at what the common mistakes are that people make, and then obviously how you guys can avoid them. So first up, what is crowdfunding? Well, it's the practice of funding a project by raising many small amounts of money from as large a number of people as possible in a particular time period. And that particular time period is probably the most important element of the crowdfunding campaign. It's a start and an end date. Typically by the internet, but it doesn't have to be. Obviously at the moment, probably does have to be. But crowdfunding was around even back in the 1800s, way before the internet was in existence. Here's just a range of projects which we've worked on, which I thought would be quite handy for you guys to see. So you've got, you know, toiletries, fashion, tech, luggage, books, cards, gin, games, food, technology, all of those different elements of things that could be crowdfunded for. My favorite thing on this is in the bottom right hand corner, you see a pyramid. That was from Burning Man Festival. They crowdfund $10,000 to make a pyramid made out of gummy bears. So really the weirder the thing is, the more likely you're going to get it crowdfunded. But equally you can see there's a code 0 shaving cream there. Obviously that's not that weird, but still successful on crowdfunding. So there's a huge variety, and I think most businesses I work with, I can probably find some kind of angle which they could crowdfund for, if obviously that's what they wanted to do. So why crowdfund? Obviously most people think about crowdfunding, they go straight to the funding part, and I see those dollar signs light up in their eyes. But if you just want the money, don't bother crowdfunding, because it's way too much work if the money is the only thing that you actually want. If you want to build your audience, build that customer database up, if you want to market your organization and really build a brand identity and get PR and get your name out there, if you want to get new donors, new customers, new brand ambassadors, and if you want to use a successful campaign for social validation, for proof, for future investment, or for other opportunities, then crowdfunding is worth it. Now, it doesn't have to be for all of those reasons, but some of them combined with the money definitely make a crowdfunding campaign worthwhile. Obviously, if you want to do all of those things, then it's going to make your life a lot easier when it comes to the crowdfunding campaign. There's 6 steps to a successful campaign, and they're all logically done in the order on the screen. The first 5, so the first ones in purple, we always do them before we even launch a campaign. So a lot of people think crowdfunding is, you know, it's getting the money in, but in reality, all the hard work comes before you've even clicked that launch button. We recommend a minimum of 8 weeks to do all of this, although in reality, if you're coming at us from a really beginning angle, then it's going to take a lot longer. If you've already got a good audience, good social media, good website, etc., then 8 weeks. If you've not got any of those, definitely think about taking longer to do it. Then you've got that campaign period, which is obviously the thing everyone thinks about when it comes to crowdfunding. For your highest chance of success, have a 5-week period. Any less, and you've maybe lost people because they, well, not right now, but normally they might be on a vacation or something, and you know, they've not had the chance to have that 5 weeks with you. And any longer, trust me, both you and your audience are going to get so annoyed at having to ask people for money that you're both going to get bored of crowdfunding. So all the statistics from across all the platforms show 30 to 38 days optimum length of a campaign. And then lastly, the follow-up. Now, a lot of people forget this, which is ridiculous. It's so important to remember the follow-up. This is until you've delivered your product to your audience. This is important because you've put in all of that hard work. We aim to have at least 75% of those people that gave you money give you money again, whether that's buying the product again in the future, whether that's buying another product from you or giving to a crowdfunding campaign again. We want these people to give to you again. So making sure that you stick with that follow-up is really important. So if we look at some of those stages now, if we quickly look at the planning stage, we've got 3 types of crowdfunding: donation-based crowdfunding, rewards-based crowdfunding, and equity-based crowdfunding. Chances are for you guys, it's going to be rewards-based crowdfunding. This is essentially a pre-sale campaign and it's transactional. You're getting customers. So maybe you have a new book that you want to sell, but instead of obviously paying all the money to make that book and then go and sell it, you're going to get all the money up front, and then you know how many copies you need to print, publish, and send out, etc. Now, typically on a website such as Kickstarter, your average crowdfunding campaign, rewards campaign, raises £15,000, which obviously isn't that much in the grand scheme of things. Our average rewards campaign raises about £45,000. But again, you're more likely to raise more the more time and effort you put into the planning. And obviously, if you're looking at raising over £70,000, then we recommend also having a significant ad spend for Facebook ads, etc. But otherwise, anything under that we can do organically with none of that ad spend. Equity, you're giving away shares in your business. You pretty much follow the same pattern as this, but there's going to be a lot more work on the financial element. But you can do a rewards campaign, and then maybe a year later you want to get investors, then you'd go down the equity campaign route. Donation campaign doesn't work for businesses because no one wants to make you richer whilst they get poorer with nothing in return. Once you've decided, okay, I'm going to do a rewards campaign, you then need to think, do I want to do Flexifunding or all or nothing? Flexifunding means however much you raise, you can take your money home. Whereas an all or nothing campaign means unless you hit your target, you'll go home with nothing. If you hit your target and go higher, you can take the money. So for example, if your target was £50,000 and you raised £49,999, if your campaign closed, you would go home with absolutely zero. What you'd obviously do in that situation would be ready to put your last £1 in just before the clock hits zero. Getting campaigns and not Flexifunding. Obviously, they really love stress, and that's why they would do it. But on the other hand, it could be because there's a minimum order run or a manufacturing cost. So for example, this campaign was all or nothing. Their target was €27,500. Now, either they could have done that because psychologically it works better to do an all or nothing campaign, or it could be because they've got to put an order into the factory, you know, for £27,500, and therefore there's no point in raising less than that. Here's another example. This was for a watch campaign that we've done. They raised £22,000. It was a flexible funding campaign. There was no minimum order that they needed to put in to get the watches made. It didn't really matter if they sold 3 watches or if they sold, you know, 176 watches. So for them, they just did a flexi funding campaign in order to keep stress as low as possible. So as I've said, with the planning, you've got to plan what type of crowdfunding you're doing, but also need to think about that funding goal and how important it is and whether you're actually going to reach it. You've got to think about the psychology of your audience, how much time you're going to spend on this, and what content you're doing and what crowd you're building, and obviously who's helping you. Crowdfunding campaigns with solo founders obviously raise less than those with teams. I recommend usually a team of 3 or 4 for a campaign of up to about 70,000 in order to spread that work and spread those skill sets. One thing that's also really important with a crowdfunding campaign compared to, let's say, just a general sales campaign is you need to have a story. Like, yes, you've probably got a really great product and people are going to buy that, but what sets you out with a crowdfunding campaign is that story and that connection you're building with the audience. So there's 3 main types of stories, and this is probably going to ruin every kid's book and Disney movie for you forevermore, which I apologize for. So you've got a challenge story, a connection story, or a creativity story. And you've basically got to think which one works best with your product and obviously your real life situation as to how you came up with it. And again, this sets you apart from bigger businesses that potentially might be doing the same thing, but they can't crowdfund because they're hiding behind a brand that doesn't have a face and a story and a connection. So I really like this campaign. This guy, as you know, sold his water balloons on a crowdfunding campaign and then went on to sell them on Amazon. Now, is this a challenge plot of a story? Is this a connection plot of a story? Or is this a creativity plot of a story? If he went down the challenge angle, it could be a story along the lines of, oh no, I'm only making 1 water balloon at a time. This is a challenge because I'm losing all of my water balloon fights. I need to, you know, fix this with the solution. That's a similar one to a creativity plot, which is more like, let me think how I can make this better and how I can win the water fight. I'm going to come up with a crazy solution that fills all of these balloons at once. Whereas a connection plot would have potentially been more like, this is my son, he's playing water balloons with his neighbors. He came to me and said, Dad, I need some help to make more water balloons faster. Can we work together to build this business and this idea? And it took off from there. So 3 kind of different stories, and it's just making sure, obviously you choose the one that sits most authentically with yourself, but also the one that you think is going to resonate well with the audience as well. Because at the end of the day, crowdfunding is all about giving the audience what they want in order to obviously get them to buy the product. The most important thing about crowdfunding and the most boring thing about crowdfunding is obviously building the crowd. So here you've got 2 restaurants. I've labeled them A and B. Imagine you're going out for a dinner back in the days when we could go out for a dinner. And both these restaurants were serving the same food. Which one are you more likely to go into? A, completely empty, or B, quite full? Now, chances are it's going to be B because it's quite full. You can probably see what their dinners are looking like on the plates and it looks good. So you're going to go in. People look like they're having fun. If you go in A, you're going to have that awkward situation where waiters will stare at you and like make you nervous when you're looking at the menu to try and order. No one wants to be the first person into the restaurant. And it's exactly the same with crowdfunding campaigns. Here we've got the same campaign and I've labeled it 1, 2, and 3. Now, chances are if you don't know this business, which one are you more likely to give your money to? You're more likely to give your money when it's on the stage at number 3, when you're on about 75% of the money. If you know the business, if it's AmazinSellers or something, and you've got a good understanding of what they do and you follow on social, maybe been to some meetups, you might give when it's on stage 2. It's less, but you know them, you trust them, you give your money then. It's very unlikely you will ever be giving when it's on number 1, when it's on 0%. The only people that will be giving there are, you know, the actual entrepreneur and his mum and his wife and his husband and his best friends. So you've really got to use your initial crowd to build that first 35, 40% in order to then allow the other people that know you to give money. And then finally, when you get to that 60, 70%, random people that you don't know will start to give money. And it's all about that ripple effect. And I don't think I've ever seen it work any differently to this. Cold emailing, cold calling, all of those things does not work on crowdfunding unless you're over that 70% part. Then it comes down to the actual project page. Now, I've chosen just 3 campaigns to have a look at here. In general, you will only give the campaign page, this bit that you see on a laptop, 4.2 seconds of your attention before you've decided whether or not to give them a bit more of your time and potentially money, or click away and go back to watching cat videos on YouTube or however you spend your time. So this is really important. The title has to be great. That picture of the video has to be great. The summary has to be great. The amount of money in the backers has to be good. So this one is like the worst campaign I've seen in a really long time. So I always use it for my workshops. They're creating a free restaurant for the homeless, staffed by disadvantaged youths who are receiving free catering training. Did you understand that from the title? Or did you understand that from the picture? Probably not. Also, what I really hate about this one, and I'll try not to get too ranty about it, is that that picture is of a homeless person, which in reality, we tend to ignore when we're walking down the street. It's not a picture that invites us in. Whereas a group of people all having a dinner together sat around a table in a community centre, probably more likely to draw us in and invite us in. So that's really important. From this immediate few seconds of looking at this page, I doubt anyone is really going to be giving them money. Even if you look, no money raised from no people. Even Cynthia Stroud and her mum, dad, husband, brother, sister haven't supported her, which again makes us wonder why. That makes us a bit nervous. And also, why should we support her? If we look at this next one, this is a much different campaign. It gives a much more friendlier vibe off of it. As you can see, this is also a street food business with a social heartbeat. So not too dissimilar from the previous campaign. The picture, you can easily make this video in your own house now that we're stuck in our own houses, because clearly this is this woman's kitchen. She's friendly, she's facing the camera. I mean, admittedly, it would be better if she wasn't like mid-conversation when this screenshot was taken. But, you know, she looks warm and inviting. The title is much clearer. As you can see, she already hit her goal and now she's on to a stretch target. So we can already see there's proof from 95 supporters that actually, you know, this is worthwhile. I know my money's probably going to be spent well. If we look at this next one, this is another one that's gone slightly wrong, I'd say. First up, he's facing away from the camera in this picture, which does not really invite you in. If I did this whole webinar and all you saw was the back of my head, I'd probably have even less of your attention than I've got right now. And another thing that really annoys me with this is in the summary section, it says save 32,000, total of £32,000, but their target's only £15,000. Now, immediately in my mind, those two numbers are different and there's a maths discrepancy going on, which means I've got some level of resistance. With crowdfunding, as soon as someone has got a level of resistance, you've lost them. They're not going to care enough to email you and ask why those are two different numbers. So you've got to be really clear off the bat in that 4.2 seconds why this is. Additionally, again, this is for a food cafe. This is for a charitable cafe. Where's the food? Why are we looking at a picture of London? It's not even Brick Lane. It's not even the cafe. So really think carefully about what your picture is. If we think back to the one with the water balloons, you showed the product, you showed a child that obviously is the target market of the product, and the child was like looking to the camera, which draws you in emotionally. Equally with this, not much money, unlikely to actually reach their target. Once you've done all of that, you then need to think about obviously communicating the campaign so that people actually know that you want to raise money for something and that they can buy your product. And I'm sure you guys are all very aware about comms. Similarly to normal sales, you've got the sales funnel. You've got to make people aware. You've then got to engage with them, and then they'll go on to give you money. So that awareness and engagement needs to come before you launch your crowdfunding campaign. so that by the time you've got that 5-week campaign, everyone is ready to part with their money. Down the side, we've just got a whole different selection of ways that you can do that. And with crowdfunding, you've got to keep it very varied and use as many of these as possible. So, you know, have your email list, send out emails to them. Also follow that up, you know, with Facebook and Instagram, if that's where your target audience is. But also combining that with phone calls for people that you know more well, that are going to be that first 40%. And then because there are so many crowdfunding campaigns and you need to stand out, think about using things such as virtual events right now, obviously, and guerrilla marketing in order to make it stand out, or user generated content to get people involved in the community. Now, you always make the most money from your email lists in crowdfunding campaigns. So definitely focus on building your email list, and you're going to make the least money from Instagram out of all of those, because Instagram, people hate clicking off the app onto crowdfunding pages. So Instagram's only really good for keeping people aware that you're still raising money and keeping them engaged with the campaign. But for money, email and Facebook are going to be your two biggest ones for that. Here's an example of a campaign. This was for a sunglasses campaign that I worked on a couple of years ago. This was their teaser video. So obviously video is very important, and you could sign up to their website to get 50% off on the launch day. Now, if we look at the awareness, the engagement, and the money giving triangle, we can see that this video had 184 views, which is obviously awareness. But then as we can see, it had 15 likes, 5 shares, and 3 comments. So we can automatically see that there was a decrease when it got to the engagement, because obviously that's a harder ask. Equally, it's much easier to like something than it is to share something or comment. So obviously that one got the most. It's also easier to share something than it is to comment. So that one got higher as well. So as you can see, you're losing people at every element. Now, if your target for your crowdfunding campaign is £10,000, you need 400 people to give you £25 to make that target. If you need 400 people to give you money, which is the bottom bit, imagine how many people you need to be engaged, and imagine how many people you need to be aware of what you're doing, especially if your drop-off rate is this high, 184 down to 15. You would need a lot of people on your social media and on your email lists in order to get enough people to give you money. Once you've done all of that, this is obviously also a pre-launch campaign here. Sign up to get 50% off on our launch date. Now, the reason that they do that is to make sure that within that first week, they can easily hit that 40% target, both from friends and family and from those really early bird customers that are getting that exclusive discount. Once you've done that, your campaign is live. You then need to track everything. So track how many backers and how many visitors you had every day, every week, and where they came from, in order to then target your marketing effectively during that 5-week period. There's no point in, you know, still doing loads of work for Instagram if it's the 3rd week and you've still not got any money in from Instagram. Give up, stop, only focus on what's actually working during that campaign. Afterwards, if you want to think about, you know, increasing your Instagram work, then think about it when you've not got the pressure of bringing in the money. Those are the 6 stages. Now, if we look at some of the common mistakes we find people make, here are just a selection really. So launching too soon, like I said, minimum 8 weeks preparation time. A lot of people come, they want to raise £100,000 in the next 2 weeks and they don't have an email list. And I'm just, you know, thinking to myself, it's not magic. When you ask people for money, any time of your life, they tend to run away from you or find some excuse to leave. They don't tend to like come running out of random corners and saying, yeah, I'll give you money. And obviously crowdfunding works the same as that. If your crowd is not there or your crowd is not prepared, we've already covered that. The other things that we need to think about as common mistakes are that you assume people care. There are going to be a lot of people in the world that don't care about filling 100 water balloons at once. But equally, that's fine, because there's going to be a really good niche that really care about filling a lot of water balloons at once. And that's the people that you need to go after, not everyone, because that's such a waste of time. Also, you need to remember that people don't know as much about your product as you do. You've got to assume they've maybe never heard of you before, or only know the basics of what you do. Whereas you obviously know everything. You've got to remember that they're not knowledgeable about your business or your product. You've also got to make sure your financials are accurate. You know, you can't ask for £2 million to print off, 1,000 copies of a book. People will just think, well, that doesn't make sense. What's he going to do with the rest of the money? Is he going to go on a nice holiday to Barbados, maybe? Who knows? But if they can't trust your financials, they're not going to give you money. It's the same as if you couldn't trust a human on the street, you're probably not going to give them your money. Trust is so important with crowdfunding, as I hope I've made very clear. And then the last 2 points, you can't be money centric. It can't be all about the money. You've got to focus on, we're building a community of people that love water balloons. We're building a community that's going to help each other. We've got brand ambassadors. All of these things are what's important, not just I need the money to make my business a success. And you also can't come across as desperate. So that's why we try and write all of the communications content before the launch of the campaign. So that should there be a day when you're having a big panic, and trust me, that day is going to come, you don't suddenly write something like, oh my God, please give us the money. We're so close, but so far. That's never going to work, okay? Like, people stay away from desperate people. Even my dog stays away from desperate people that want to really, really pet it. So if my dog stays away from desperate people, other people really will. Really focus on the positive, uplifting, inspirational content, not the desperation. So again, write it from a time when you're feeling less stressed, which, trust me, is going to be before the campaign's launched and not during the campaign. Just leave bits empty. So obviously you don't know how much you're going to have raised by the end of, the first week, but you kind of know that you're going to be happy and very thankful. So you can write all of the rest of the email and then just leave that bit empty, ready for the week 1 update, and then just tell people at that point. So those are the common mistakes, and just really take a note of them and make sure that when you launch your campaign, you've ticked off all of those and you can make sure that you're not falling into any of those traps. Other than that, what we do to help, other than these quick webinars, obviously, are a range of different things. So we've got an 8-part online training course, which takes you through the 6 steps of crowdfunding week by week and gives you all of the help to build your campaign. Combined in that is our workbook, which we also sell separately, which has all the templates that you need to fill in for your content, for your strategy. During the campaign, we have our tip of the day calendar, which just gives you a tip every day of the campaign in order to provide a bit more motivation, provide a new marketing technique or something you can pull off in a day that's going to make a difference. And then, as well as that, for the larger campaigns, we do full campaign management, where we plan out your entire strategy, personalized and content plans and everything for you. We work with you for the entire period. And we also just do hourly consultations whereby we review any of the work that you do on your own without us. So that's all of the things that we offer. That's all of the webinar that we're going to do today. So thank you very much for watching. Again, here's the email address and my Twitter handle in case you've got any questions at a later date. The website's down there as well. But otherwise, I'll hand back over to Yop and see whether we've got any questions. I'll leave this up for a few minutes.